Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Public Protection and Judiciary Committee meeting for October 5th. For roll call, I just note that everybody is present on the committee, Janet, and ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved.
Supervisor Ramberg moves approval. Second by Supervisor Adams. Yeah. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. They're approved. Any public comment today? Any public comment? I don't see anybody in the public present, so we have no public comment. We'll go to our business items and the county administrator.
Yeah, the financial report's in the packet. Janet's going to scroll through and go over that with you. Really, I looked through the financial report for August through this time period. It's pretty routine. There's nothing exciting in there really for me to highlight and go over for you. If you guys saw anything in there, I'd be happy to answer them. But everyone's really pretty much staying right on target for where their budget should be, and there's no big anomalies that I'm picking up on.
I had one question for the administrator that relates very generally to the budget, but maybe you could refresh our memories or clarify our memories for us. We just had our board meeting on Tuesday night, and a lot of the discussion related to CASA. Mm-hmm. Would you be able to just review a little bit about where we now sit with that proposal as to when it's rescheduled for consideration by anybody of the county, and how it impacts the 23 budget and the 24 budget?
Yeah, I'll give you the long explanation. So the county received $17 million of funding from the federal government, ARPA dollars, and they have specific uses. So we'd originally allocated all of the $17 million out for different projects. As those projects started to close, some of them closed under budget, refreeing some of those federal dollars. All of the federal dollars have to be spent by the end of 2024. So CASA is relatively new. This is only second year in existence. So they were probably brand new at the time that the original allocation of our ARPA dollars went out. So now having a little bit more experience with them, seeing some of the good work they've done, and looking at the qualifications for that federal grant, we made a determination that they would be eligible for that. So I'd put together a proposal along with a list of other things for the reallocation of the ARPA dollars as they're coming available. So the county board earlier this week struck two of the items on that list, one of them being the CASA allocation. I mean, I don't think there was any ill will towards the CASA program. I think there's general support for the CASA program. I think it might have been just the dollar amounts that were proposed in there, $100,000 for 2023 and $200,000 for 2024. So where we're at right now is that funding was struck. They've asked for it to be placed on the committee of the whole as an agenda item. So the county board will have a chance to discuss that next week, Thursday, at our 8:30 a.m. committee of the whole meeting. I believe it's the first item that'll be on the agenda. And if there's a recommendation that comes out of the committee of the whole, it will go back to the administration committee to be put into the form of a resolution, and then back to the county board for adoption as early as the November county board meeting.
So just to repeat. I'm sorry, Supervisor Ramberg.
A follow-up on that, just from my understanding, my reading of it was that we were basically just flipping those dollars from the county levy budget type to the ARPA. We were just flipping it. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So the funding of CASA, we had originally provided $50,000 of startup money in order for organizational paperwork and other things for them to become a legal entity. So the county had provided them some seed money. In 2023, the county had allocated roughly $40,000 from our tax levy or general fund, but it was county regular tax dollars that were allocated for that. So only about $40,000. So this $100,000 and $200,000 in 23 and 24 was in addition to anything we've done before for them. So it was new money for that organization.
questions on the status of the CASA provisions? Sure.
I'm assuming someone from CASA will be there next week?
I hope so. I mean, some of the questions were related to the statistics of CASA, and I don't know enough about that organization. It's a nonprofit. It's not a county organization. It's just a partner organization, that's beneficial for us. So I believe Heather Amos had reached out to members of CASA to have somebody there. But I'm sure the judge could also speak on what he sees on the court side, the benefits of CASA. That would be the other perspective that you may want to get.
Yeah, I agree. And because I tried to speak to what you had said before, but apparently I didn't do an eloquent enough job.
And actually, that was the next thing I was going to call on, was the judge, if he had any comments on what CASA means to the courts. Now, before we get to his specific updates.
Sure, and I don't think the courts will weigh in as to, the funding. I can certainly tell you what we're seeing as results from CASA. My understanding is that there are now, I believe, 25 plus volunteers who have been trained, sworn, and are engaging with families. We continue to have an excess of 100 kids out of home as we sit here at this moment. And so we try to determine, not the courts, but the CASA director, Sean Kinsella, and Michelle Lesha, primarily from DHS, they try to figure out, okay, what would be a good match for a particular child who's out of home, and then they match up a CASA volunteer with that child, really as just a support. And I don't want to be catty, but the expression is that all it takes is one caring adult for a child to be successful. And so we try to use that mantra in assigning CASAs. I can tell you that the reports that we're getting tell us a lot more than what we've ever heard before in terms of how kids are doing, things that may be going on in that foster home, or things that the CASA sees that might be useful, because they're meeting with these kids once a week. They're spending not less than an hour generally in the foster home, or maybe at a park, or I know some of them go to schools to have lunch with the kids. And so social workers, and this is not a criticism, I think Michelle Lesha said right now their social workers have, I believe it's close to 40 or 50 kids on their caseloads. So their ability to interact and to have those types of interventions with kids is non-existent. So with this weekly contact, we are now getting reports from CASA that are enlightening in terms of how kids are doing and what their day-to-day lives are like, with the goal certainly to get them back home. And that is, again, at least what we believe is the primary purpose of CASA, is that to reunify, to get kids into a permanent living environment, whether it's back with family, with meaning parents, another family member, potentially guardianship, or in some situations moving to termination of parental rights to get them into an adoptive setting. So CASA really is just, as I describe it, boots on the ground. That person who is going to be interacting with kids on a weekly basis, and then they provide reports to the court. They come to court hearings. We ask them, to share whatever information they think might be useful to us when we're looking at permanency, when we're looking at, should we now explore reunification? Should we explore some other options for these kids? So again, it's still relatively new. As Ken said, I think the program in and of itself is only up and running for 2 years. And I just swore in new volunteers 2 weeks ago, so they continue to recruit. I know they're really emphasizing recruiting out county. We have a lot of volunteers from Hudson, which would make sense. But we also are trying to recruit now more in the Richmond, Baldwin, Glenwood area to get people involved. Our CASAs tend to be retired. I don't think that comes as a surprise. They have the time. And male, female, I'm not sure. I would guess it's probably 2/3, 1/3 females, CASA volunteers. So we're looking for obviously more males to be involved and become volunteers. Sean is going to come talk to the church I belong to in Richmond in a couple of weeks and introduce and try to, again, recruit. But that's the benefit the courts are seeing. We're getting information that we've never had before. And with the goal, again, to reunify and get kids back home.
Thank you, Judge. Any further questions for the administrator or the judge on that? Then we'll move to the second item, and that's back to the judge for the circuit court update.
Segue. Judge Norstrand and I, 4 social workers, and Anjali Patel, who's going to be the assistant corp counsel taking over a child protection prosecution, all went to the child welfare conference in Wisconsin Dells last week. It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. As you would expect, well attended. It was for social workers, judges, attorneys, guardian ad litems. In attendance were over 500 people, and then they had another 400 by Zoom or virtual. So 900 people attended this conference. We had national speakers, we had breakout sessions, and all of us tried to target a breakout session that we thought might be useful and what we can bring back to St. Croix. Part of the process also involved team meetings. So each day, each county met independently to basically triage what we had heard in our sessions and then come up with action plans about things maybe that we could look at and implement in St. Croix. So it was a worthwhile conference. Teresa Beyer attended by Zoom. She's our guardian ad litem in child protection cases. Tim Heckman, our commissioner, attended by Zoom. So we had a really good representation. Kind of alongside that, next week, we will be launching our new Child Welfare Juvenile Justice Subcommittee of CJCC. That's the subcommittee that the full body of CJCC approved last month. And so Phil and I have been working to identify a membership, which we're excited. We really have all of our stakeholders who will be sitting around a table looking at child protection, looking at juvenile justice, and how we hopefully, again, in St. Croix County, can look at CASA, we can look at our foster home programs, we can look at a number of other initiatives. So that's next Tuesday is the meeting to organize and to get that up and running. We also have a representative from our municipal court, Sue Garrity, who I think many of you know, longtime municipal judge in Hudson, who has been extremely active on that level in trying to do something with truancy in Hudson. Many of our other municipal courts simply issue a ticket and extract a forfeiture from kids for truancy. Sue really tries to dive in and figure out why aren't these kids going to school and what is maybe the root cause. So Sue will be on that group, and we really hope, as I said, to engage our municipal courts in a way that will lead potentially to some changes to truancy management and the interventions that are necessary. And again, I think you're all certainly aware, post-COVID, truancy is through the roof. For a year and a half, kids didn't go to school or attended virtually. And so truancy now, I think, is, and the DA could probably speak to this as well, in terms of the referrals and the number of kids who we're seeing in that particular challenge. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Captain Anderson from the jail, the sheriff, and the public defender to look at how we can best serve individuals who have been arrested the night before, over the weekend, and access to the jail by the public defender in terms of doing their interviews, in terms of making those first contacts. And we've kind of launched a new process to look at that and to address that so it doesn't disrupt jail staff, it doesn't disrupt inmates, but also makes access by the public defender maybe a little more seamless than some of the challenges and problems that were identified. So that was really a good meeting, and hopefully we're going to iron out any of the potential issues. I had 18 in custody on Monday, and that went seamlessly in terms of the public defender and their ability to talk to all 18 before they came to court at 1 o'clock. And so whatever we accomplished, at least as of Monday, seemed to be working pretty well. We've welcomed a lot of staff in the court system. The DA has just hired a new contract ADA, Robert Fowler, who I believe started about 2 weeks ago, Carl. And so he's been sitting in and doing more observation, but we look forward to his working now in the system. Public Defender's just hired a new state public defender attorney, Lainey Croix, a new graduate from Minnesota, who was sworn in, I believe, last week by the Supreme Court, and she started her work. Christy, knock on wood, keep our fingers crossed, will be fully staffed as of Monday. We signed the order authorizing this person to now be a clerk in the clerk of court's office. I think you're aware Judge Waterman finished a 3-week jury trial last week, challenging on all fronts for the clerk's office, court security, and others, but it, again, really was a testament to the cooperation between all of the agencies and trying a very challenging 3-week trial that then will lead to, I think, 2, if not 3, 2-week, 1-week trials coming up before the end of the year, high-profile homicides primarily. We welcomed a new bailiff with that new trial, Tom Coulter. Many of you know him. And so Tom, I think, has his sea legs, so to speak, and hopefully will now be able to serve the courts as a bailiff. And that's my report. I wasn't aware of the committee of the whole. I'll try to make it available on my calendar next week and have a judge down to address CASA, not from the standpoint of should you fund it or not, but just what we see as the benefits. Any questions?
Boy, Judge, you're not going to get off that easily. I've got a couple questions. Let me just go back to just very generally your comments about the new CHIPS processes, and if you would care to add anything more to how that's working. I know there was a transition from the DA to the Corp Counsel. We've got new staff and new policies, new procedures. Could just tell us a little bit more about how that's working and the importance and what it means, what CHIPS means to our children and to our county.
Okay. Certainly. The transition is still a work in progress. Anjali Patel will be the new Corp Counsel, I think exclusively assigned to doing child protection cases. Unfortunately, the district attorney didn't have that luxury of having just a dedicated ADA to do that. So that certainly, from the standpoint of time available and the ability to work those cases and to manage them, will be enhanced just by manpower forces alone. Anjali's been sitting in on hearings for the last month at least. I know she's been meeting with Aaron Domro, who primarily is doing CHIPS for the DA's office right now. She's been meeting with the guardian ad litem, Teresa Byers. I know she's been meeting a lot with Michelle Lesha and social workers. And my understanding is that primarily what will happen is a great deal more of interaction between she as a prosecutor and the department, and then ultimately resulting in what we hope will be an improvement to some of the challenges we've had. We've had, as I also said, this JET initiative, which was judicial engagement teams that was managed by the Director of State Courts Child Improvement Program. So they've come up and done 2, if not 3, sessions with us on team building and trust and some of the other issues that come with various bodies who have their own interests and their own outcomes and how we work cooperatively and collaboratively. We have another meeting coming up within the month to talk about tailored dispositional orders. So anytime you have a child protection case, at the conclusion, you enter what's called a dispositional order. What are the steps that this parent needs to accomplish to either have the child come home or to have the department sign off and out of their lives? Those dispositional orders are sometimes pages, and when you're dealing with a population of parents who all they see is how do I get my kids home, the sheer volume is sometimes overwhelming. Our dispositional orders are also generally written by master's level, if not higher professionals, and the reading level of many of our parents is not at that same point. So this next project of ours is to come up with tailored dispositional orders. In other words, reducing 20 conditions down to 4 or 5. What specifically do these parents need to do, as opposed to this laundry list that, as I said, is overwhelming? And so that is our next project, to come up with dispositional plans that will address this specific child and parents and their needs. So Anjali, as now the lead for child protection, is going to be essential in helping develop that, and then trying to wean our social workers from coming up with these laundry lists. And I'm not saying they were inappropriate. They all were necessary, but we want to make them hopefully understandable and attainable. And that's, again, where CASA comes in, because I think we're going to ask likewise for their input, their suggestions, their ideas. Most of our child protection cases are neglect, but neglect translates into drug use. And so it's hard to distinguish between the neglect component and drug addiction component. I think that comprises probably 70% of all of our child protection cases, neglect and drug addiction. So those are areas certainly that county-wide we need to be aware of in terms of the addiction crisis. We're stepping up, as you know, our testing in child protection cases, and hopefully opening the satellite site in Richmond is going to help in terms of monitoring and helping parents manage their addictions, and focusing selfishly on themselves first, and then as a corollary, then they can become better parents. If a parent comes in and tells me, Judge, I got to do this for my kids, I'll say, well, it didn't stop you from using, which got you here to begin with. So focus on yourself. And once you have that in place, then we'll look at your ability to parent. The other things that we're looking at, and we're certainly aware there are some initiatives in the state called family treatment courts. That is, again, similar to a drug treatment court, only this is targeted to families in the child protection arena. And it's a process that's going to take a while. I think Dunn County, they were in planning for close to 2 years before they launched their treatment court. Brown County has one. I think Barron County is implementing or has implemented. So that's a court, again, that we may explore. I'm not saying we will or not, but at least it's in our radar to look at and see if this will be something that St. Croix maybe would like to at least explore. Part of the problem is that there isn't any evidence that it works yet because it's such a new program. So again, before I jump in with both feet, I'd like some evidence that this is going to make a difference, and that it will be something that will enhance, as opposed to just add another potential obligation or commitment. So Judge Meyer from Dunn County is running their program, but they also were the recipients of an $860,000 grant to help them get it up and going. So I don't think Ken's going to be able to find $800,000 in the budget potentially to launch a treatment course. Yeah. So those are things, as I said, that there are monies out there, and I think certainly grants may be an option, but as you know, grants end. And so if this is going to be sustainable, we would like some proof and some evidence to establish that, albeit we'll start it potentially with a grant at some point where we may have to independently fund it. And will we be able then to show to the county board, the benefits and the reasons why that should be fully funded. So that's kind of a really long answer to your question, Supervisor.
No, that's a perfect answer, very comprehensive. Any other questions for the judge on that issue? Thank you very much, Judge, appreciate it. Next item on the agenda, Justice Support Services. Dr. Gali.
Yes, thank you. So just to kind of recap for justice support as far as pretrial goes, our two main goals are to increase court appearances, return to court, and public safety. Those are our two kind of measures, if you will. So to just talk about our Q3 statistics for 2023, our arrest-free rate for our pretrial population is 96%, which is actually up a little bit from Q2. So 96% of our folks are remaining arrest-free. That's a really good number. Our violent arrest-free is 99%. Again, that's right on par with where we've been the last 2 quarters. Again, really, really good numbers there. Our court appearance rate actually dropped about 10%. But in talking with Shelby, I think it's because we were playing catch up with some of our data. So the last 2 quarters, we've been right around 95%. We dropped to about 85%. So I don't believe that that's truly indicative of return to court dropping significantly. I think it's us playing catch up on our data. So when I report back these numbers for Q4 in January, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to see that jump is back around mid-90s. We served 270 pretrial clients in Q3, which that was another big jump for us, up from about 170. We conducted 150 roughly public safety assessments. So again, the public safety assessment is what we provide to the courts as a tool or as a resource to determine or inform the bench about bond. So we did 150 of those. Again, that was up by about 20 from Q2. One thing I did want to highlight as far as drug testing goes, we actually saw a very significant increase, and this is probably not surprising based on the current trends in this country, in fentanyl positives. So Q2 we had 14, we had 45 in Q3, so triple. Again, not terribly surprising, but unfortunate. I think something we just need to continue to keep our eye on. And I don't know, Patty, if you're seeing similar trends in overdoses.
We do, but it seems like when there's hot overdoses going on, they happen in New Richmond and Hudson within a day or 2 of each other. It seems that's kind of been a consistent trend that we've had for maybe almost all of this year. Don't you guys agree? I mean, it seems like the two kind of go hand in hand.
So again, just something we really want to keep our eye on. And in pretrial, I know we talk about harm reduction, we talk about intervention and prevention and what we can do. Behavioral health has made available fentanyl test strips for folks that are using to test the drug that they're using to determine whether or not there's fentanyl in it. Again, our case managers have discussions about treatment needs for folks. So we're having those discussions. But it's just, again, something I think we want to keep our eye on. Those are the main statistics that I have to report back, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Questions for Dr. Gali? Pardon?
I actually have one.
Okay.
So I was just curious on your data, the fentanyl increases. So do you talk with them at all? So the increase in the fentanyl positive tests, are they purposely taking the fentanyl, or is it being mixed in with their other drugs and they didn't even know it?
That's a great question. I think it's the latter. I think that and the sheriff could probably speak to that as well. I think it is unbeknownst to them, they're using whatever substance and that's being mixed in with it.
So people can get testing strips from your office to test to see if there's fentanyl?
They can, and behavioral health has those as well.
So people that aren't in the system, can they be referred to you though and get some walk-ins?
They could, yeah. I mean, certainly since we're a county entity, if they're county
At the
residents.
service center also.
At the services center, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Kind of a follow-up to that quick conversation of do they know that they're taking fentanyl or willingly do it? We have gotten some feedback through some of our drug investigators that when they speak with people that they're investigating and they let them know that, hey, you've either tested positive for fentanyl or whatever, a number of times they are surprised as well and said, I don't want to mess with that stuff, but whatever they're buying, it's in there. So the latter is correct of a lot are not purposefully taking fentanyl. About a month ago, we did have a gentleman in court that overdosed in the courtroom during one of the hearings. So used Narcan, and a number of people, Christy, everybody came, and off he went to the hospital. But in that response then, not response, but as a result of that, we have now put Narcan in the courtrooms, not thinking that it was going to come right into the building, but it did. So that's kind of the byproduct of it.
Just part of this discussion, at our board meeting on Tuesday, one of the items we approved was a plan for the administrator for the coming year. And in that plan was the requirement that we do a public safety plan, the administrator do a public safety plan. And that could be extremely broad, encompassing virtually every element of the county, but clearly elements of the county that are sitting at the table today. I don't know if the administrator has done any preliminary thinking about what that plan might entail, or given obviously the surge in pretrial work that's happening at Dr. Gawley's office, or the incidence of fentanyl that's increasing dramatically. Obviously, this is a critical issue for us. Would you care to comment further on that, Ken?
No, I haven't done it yet.
Well, we didn't expect it to be done now.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that, Dr. Gawley. Yeah, I haven't started working on that. You just approved it Tuesday night, so.
Right, no, I know that. I know that as I read the NACO newsletters and that sort of thing, I know a number of counties, particularly in the south and east coast, have developed public safety plans that are extraordinarily large and encompassing and embrace virtually every element of what you would supervise. But just let us know how we can be helpful as you begin to develop that. Supervisor Lee?
So are there Narcan little nasal things next to AEDs, or where are they? Or are they in, okay.
They were placed in all 4 courtrooms, the 2 hearing rooms, and in the AED station on both the first floor and second floor currently. And then I have extras in my office and I have an emergency medical kit because I am a trained first responder. So, and all the deputies are aware.
Sense? Oh, it makes sense because people are, know where those are. Usually they know in a building, at least people that work in the building. That's part of on-board training is where's the AED, right? So that's good.
And that was a quick response from Char Lopez up at HHS. She got us a bunch of Narcan as soon as we notified her of that, and that's how our supply was quickly filled down here. So thanks to them.
And just an observation, Dr. Guy mentioned he was gathering a lot of statistics on various pretrial elements of things, and he and I have talked both here and offline about a project that he's working on that'll benefit this committee greatly, hopefully early next year, on the first basic but comprehensive statistical analysis of what's happening in the justice system in St. Croix County. And I know Dr. Gawley and his staff have worked very hard on the mapping end of that process. And we just heard some very interesting statistics, and I would just urge all those who have data, everybody at the table really has some great data. And we don't want to flood Dr. Gawley or ourselves with every last piece of information, but if there are 10 critical pieces of information that the sheriff, the judge, the DA, the medical examiner, everybody has, that they could give Dr. Golly, it would sure make his life easier as he puts this together, because he's the coordinator. He doesn't have to generate this stuff. And so I would just urge everybody to go back to the office today and think, what can you do to help Dr. Golly finish this project by the end of this calendar year, so he can just compile it and share it with us maybe in January or February. Any other questions for Dr. Golly? We'll turn to the medical examiner, Penny Schachter.
This is a really interesting conversation, because I always kind of look back and go, where would we be sitting, meaning myself, law enforcement, and the justice system, if we didn't have Narcan? How many overdoses would we really have here in St. Croix County? Because we know there's a lot. And Narcan is saving lives in St. Croix County every day, and I don't believe that people realize that. When we go to those lethal overdoses, the amount of times that family has administered Narcan to their loved ones is amazing. And I don't know how we get that, so we can kind of figure it out, but the amount, I have no, how do you know how much Narcan is out in the public? And how much is being used? Because to really get a pulse on what's going on, if you have 6 or 7 fatal overdoses a year and that number stays consistent, it looks like from the outside, the problem is being taken care of. But if you have all these doses of Narcan being delivered on a daily basis in life-saving measures, it tells you how big the problem really is. So it's a lot of information out there that still needs to be gathered. But I'm here to talk to you about PPE. So for those of you that when COVID hit, PPE was really the thing that was out there for everybody, whether it was gloves or masks and everything. And our department has always been really effective in multiple areas of PPE. We have our own turnout gear. We have our own rubber boots. Everybody has rubber boots for non-rescue type things. We have so many Tyvek suits, it's unbelievable. But there are things in PPE that us in law enforcement, that my team will have, that law enforcement doesn't have, and we will collaborate once in a while. One of our things that we're the most proud of is that sometimes you will have scenes and you have to put your hands in wet situations. Your gloves only go up to here. Jeff Kennett, a farmer, is like, well, let's get some breeder gloves. That'll take care of that problem. Put a hair binder on them and we can dig in. And so that was a really, really cheap fix that we were able to use PPE in a way that we are not contaminating our clothes, and law enforcement can then go on with their day. There's calls stacking up while they're helping at my office do work. It wasn't until recently that I realized that we're constantly making a plan on how to extricate folks in whatever their situation is. But most of our calls, we work hand in hand with the Sheriff's Department. And recently we had a very, very visually disturbing and also odor felt scene that was just very disturbing all the way around. We had the PPE to take care of our own clothes. We had masks, we had everything. What I didn't realize is the outer shell of the bulletproof vests are fabric. So all those smells go into that fabric. And then after we leave with the decedent, when we take all our PPE off, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But law enforcement does. They have to get back in their car and have that horrible smell or maybe body fluids or whatever, because they get one of those shells. I never realized that was a thing, and after that particular incident, I told Sheriff Knutson I'm going to advocate that the law enforcement get 2, because the way they have to be kept, the way they have to be laundered, it is an issue. And the fact that we can go home and go back to our job and clean up, and we have shower and washing machine and everything to do that, but they don't, is not healthy for them. And I just want to make sure that they get the opportunities that if they have a scene that someone vomits or whatever on them, that they don't just have to wipe it off, that they have the ability to switch out their vest, the washable part, because they shouldn't have to have that smell with them in the car for the rest of the day, or if they're just starting a shift and they have 3-4 days, because it takes days for them to dry out also. And from what I was told, if you dry them in the dryer, then they shrink, and they're pretty tight fitting. So that was my whole thing. I am just making a pitch for them to get a second set. And I just got the stink eye from Ken.
Well, that's, thank you for that. And I guess I would turn to the sheriff and just ask the sheriff if you know, one, he concurs there's a problem, and two, if he has the funding elsewhere in the budget to take care of basic cleaning, or are you going to be thinking about looking for additional funding at some point for that?
I think there's some changes that we could make, but I think it's all doable for us to work through this. You know, again, I've done this a lot of years as well, and there's been plenty of times I've aired out jackets outside because of places I've been. So, yes, we're looking at all those things.
Any other questions for the medical examiner? And just enter any general update. I know you did this on Tuesday to a degree, but use of the new equipment, any other people coming to us for usage of it, revenue being driven?
We had Eau Claire and Dunn County at our office a week ago, and then Barron County has showed interest. So it's a slow process. I mean, you know, getting like Barron County, what they're also thinking about is working with their hospital to use their scanner, so they can do it right there, but they got to figure out some different processes. Eau Claire and Dunn County, they collaborate together. So this here, they have to figure out the transport rates, because their transport comes out of their budget. And so it's like we just operate way differently. So I think it's going to happen, but we're not available 24/7 to other counties. We are available 24/7. Our first priority is St. Croix County, and that's kind of how it'll be operating for a while.
Supervisor Carlson.
Yeah, you mentioned that full-time person for your office. Who would that person be? Would that be another ME or an office professional type?
I am saying when I retire, you're going to need a full-time person. That person would take on all the responsibilities of a chief medical examiner. Right now, I do the responsibilities, and I am pretty much full-time investigator. And it would be, that person would do all the administrative work, not the program coordinator work, and then probably 1 or 2 days investigating. And then you would probably need to have another investigator that takes care of days to take care of the other 3 days. And then to augment that, the night and weekends could be part-time. And, but then it is really, does it go to a straight hourly wage or keep going with on-call? We're doing time studies for that there. So there's advantages to both, you know, of the part-time people having an hourly wage or the per diem like we get now. I think it has to be a moving forward type thing. The investigators we have probably are happy with where they are in their salaries, but moving forward, our department is very old, so they're going to be retiring quickly, and you're going to have to figure out how to do that. We knew this was coming in that, but I think we can have several different options available by the end of the year.
So, in your opinion, would it be wise to look for that full-time person now? Maybe not an ME, but an investigator?
What do you mean, to have a full-time person right now? I think we're fine right now. I think we're fine right now and that, but I think as my retirement looms, you need to really plan for the future. I'm not saying that I'm not replaceable, I am, but it's gonna be a big task.
I can imagine. All right, thanks.
My awesomeness supersedes me.
Thank you, that clarifies it for me.
Yeah, Patty does a lot right now, and so we're looking at other models, but the model we have right now works great as long as we have Patty doing it. But we do know that eventually she may decide she doesn't want to, or she'll become one of her own clients, and then we'll be forced to. She said this herself the other night.
One never knows.
So we are looking at other models. The other thing Patty forgot to mention was what was it, the Toxicon, or what was the machine called?
Randox.
The Randox.
Yeah.
That she had brought up last month. We did incorporate that into the KIP, so we're on target to obtain that machine in January.
That piece of equipment not only will be helpful for us, but it will be super helpful for law enforcement, because we're going to be able to qualify that there are illegal drugs in the system within 20 minutes of being at our lab. So they don't even have to go back. We can do that, and yes, there is, no, there's not, and then move on. And then from a perspective, from our point of view, also for those decedents that drugs were never part of what we thought, instead of doing $220, it's now $35 to quantify that there's no illegal drugs. So it'll be used in a lot of different ways.
Any other questions for the medical examiner? That just about concludes our business items. I would just like to again thank Lisa, Christie, and Patty for their excellent presentations on Tuesday night, and that does conclude our business items, unless there's anything else. So now request for future agenda items. One of the things I might just try to put into that calendar is our calendar. Last year we tried to plan ahead a little bit, and I think what we did was we decided we would not meet in February and July of last year for sure. And I think at one point during the calendar year of this year, we had a light agenda, so I think we canceled the agenda, so we had 9 meetings instead of 12. So we don't have to make a decision now, but perhaps at our November meeting we might want to discuss, do we need a December meeting, depending on various factors. If we have stuff to consider, we'll definitely have one. If we don't, we could consider whether we need one in December, and also thinking about everybody's calendar for 2024 and whether we wanted to plan ahead for a month off or 2 months off, or leave it very flexible in addition to that. So I just throw that out as something we might want to consider in November. And Janet, any announcements or correspondence that you've gotten? Oh, I'm sorry. Paul.
I would just like to state and commend the benefit for Deputy Lysing that was held a couple weeks ago. I attended that, and that was a great affair out there. I think that, isn't there another one coming at the end of this month, Sheriff?
October 14th, next Saturday.
Okay. If folks can make that, that'd be great, just to show the flag out there. But that was a great event, and I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding of that. Sheriff.
Yes, thank you. Yep, and it is October 14th at Roosters Roadhouse on County Road T, over by County Road K. So that one we anticipate will be well attended. Lots of good community support, donations, and our thanks go out to everybody that has been so supportful in this. So I also wanted to bring up on September 24th, the emergency management. Several of you attended a course about 23 people for emergency management, NIMS, which is the National Incident Management System, was put on. There's 23 individuals from municipalities in St. Croix and Polk County. I believe Supervisor Carlson and Supervisor Adams were there. So my thanks to you guys, and I hope it was beneficial.
If I could just pick up on that for just a second. I know earlier this year we had talked about, in our bylaws, this committee is the Emergency Management Committee. For the most part, we've done nothing ever in that area. We've had a briefing, I think, in January from Ms. Cardinal. And other than that, I don't think we've been called upon to do anything, or we've done anything other than several members attending the program that was just discussed. I think Supervisor Adams was thinking about working with emergency management to see if we could have a very, very basic, very short tabletop exercise that might go through whatever extremely basic things we might need to be sure we're up to date on relative to our duty in that respect. And so I don't want to ask any other questions at this time, but if we wanted to do something like that, we might be able to do something like that before the end of the year or early next year. And again, from my perspective at least, I'm talking about something extremely basic, but we had talked about that, and we should either decide to do it or not to do it, I think, sometime over the next few months. And I'll just leave it at that. Any other announcements? Well, with that, at 8:52, we'll adjourn. Our next meeting is November 2nd. Thank you, everybody.